How do you talk rock stars down from breaking up the band? And is it possible to get an Oscar-winning actress out of a record deal? How do you get people who hate each other to sit down together? These are all questions that Hollywood mediator Lee Jay Berman has had to grapple with. He's flown across the Pacific to speak at the Arbitrators and Mediators Institute of New Zealand conference, and he's in our Wellington studio. Hey there, Lee Jay.
Hey, Jess, how are you?
Good, thank you. You had any disputes you've had to break up since you've been here in New Zealand?
No, I find New Zealanders are pretty peaceful people.
Right, okay. What are they like in California? Did mediation take a while to take off?
It did. I've been at it 24 years, and it's been evolving the entire time.
So what do you tell people when you're extolling the virtues of mediation versus, say, litigation?
Oh, so much. In mediation, they get to control their outcome. No one makes you do anything you don't want to do in mediation. And so they go into this process and they can say, I won't do that, but I will do this. If you'll do this for me, I'll do that for you. And it's really dialogue. It's give and take rather than being ordered to do something.
Does it still work if they hate each other?
It does, because everybody has their own self-interest. And so it's interesting, what I tell folks in the first couple of minutes of most mediations is everybody came here today looking for something. And if you think about it, it's the folks sitting across the table who have what you came here for today. And so reorienting them that way changes the mindset. It changes our approach.
It doesn't work quite so well if you're trying to punish someone. I suppose the court is better for that.
It's true. People... We break them apart and put them in separate rooms at times, and we say to them, what is it that makes you want to punish them so much, and what will you get out of that? And once we talk it through with them, it's really just that they're often just venting, and what they really want is something restored, whether it's their reputation or property or whatever it is. So I try to get to the root of those things and deal with the people aspects as well as the property and the money and the other thing, and of course the perception by others when we're dealing with Hollywood.
Yeah, tell me about Hollywood. What are some of the more memorable cases you've been involved with over there?
Oh, gosh, all kinds. Was just talking with Deb sitting here from Amon's that there was a rock band that I worked with. 4 guys, we locked ourselves in a room for 12 hours. They were about to break up. The business manager had called me in and said, don't let that happen. And had conversations with them about what each of them gets out of being in the band and what it means to them. And, one guy loves to come down stage and have the girls all go crazy, and another guy wants to put money in the bank for his kid's future. And so it's about helping them each get what they want out of this and making them aware that they have to make sure the other guys are getting what they want if this thing's going to continue.
Sports as well?
Yeah. Mediated with an Olympic sprinter who had to explain to his doctor why the fact that the doctor made a mistake and that his knee healed a little bit wrong that slowed him down some. He had to have him talk to the doctor about how 1/100th of a second is the difference between this guy having a career and not. And the high performance levels that people are operating at in sports and in entertainment and in big business and tech and things, a small difference makes a big difference to folks. And oftentimes when they're in a conflict, the people on the other side don't really understand that until they hear it from them.
I imagine there are a lot of disputes between artists and management. Is that something you've got experience with?
Yeah, I also see a lot in royalties and things where you've got somebody writes a song and then there's a dispute over who owns the future. Yeah. And these income streams, these can go on. I mean, they're in perpetuity, and they can be 6 figures a year from one big hit song. And so these catalogs sell for a lot of money, and people fight over the rights. And it's always fun to get them into a room and have them really talk it through and figure out creative ways to resolve things like that.
Is it still true? Add a word, get a third?
I haven't heard that one in a while. But great. Yeah, I like it.
What about some of these big stories that we're hearing out of Hollywood? The #MeToo movement, has that had an impact on your work, or have you actually had to deal with any of these cases?
Oh, well, I've been dealing with sexual harassment in the workplace and sexual assault for a long time. I've got a case I'm working on right now that was a sexual assault on a college campus, and the college campus had its administrative process and found the gentleman in this case to be quote unquote responsible. That was their term of art. And it's gone back and forth to the courts where they've challenged the process. And the sad thing is, they're embroiled in this litigation. It's been up to the Court of Appeals and back down again. And the two kids at the bottom of it, these two now 20-year-olds who were 19 at the time, they're both ready to be done. They want to make peace with each other. But there's so much going on with the litigation and the complexity of it now that they're not able to extract themselves from it. And both of them are saying, I just wish that this had never started. It's interesting and it's sad to be right at the heart of this. And frankly, there are conversations, too, about, so Jess, as you know, the mediation process is confidential. And the outcomes that come out of them are often confidential. And yet, especially in Hollywood, there's been a lot of conversation around, are we protecting the harassers by keeping the outcomes confidential? And so there's actually a debate going on right here in New Zealand. One of the breakout sessions at the most recent Ammons conference this past weekend was, should we or should we not be mediating sexual harassment cases? Because we can all agree on one hand, it's the best forum to have dialogue and have restorative justice and things like that happen. And some magical things can come out of those kinds of discussions. And at the same time, if the results are being swept under the carpet, that's a concern going forward with repeat offenders and so on.
Yeah, that's right, because it's not just a dispute, it's actual offending, right, in which punishment may be appropriate.
Right.
Can I ask a Hollywood mediator what he has to say about the polarization in the US political scene, and might a mediator be able to see a future in which people are coming together again?
Well, fortunately, Jess, a mediator can always see a future in which people are coming together again. We walk around these sort of unbridled optimists because we've seen lightning strike and the magic work so many times. The polarization is a real issue. And personally, not speaking on behalf of mediators everywhere or anything, but personally, I think the polarization is a problem because some of it, I think, is manufactured to keep us fighting with each other and sell more papers and things like that. And I love hearing you with your last guest break down the economy from a rational point of view and looking at the numbers and thinking about it rather than just firing sound bites back and forth, which is a lot of what's happening in our world right now in the States.
You haven't got a call from the Fox News people saying, look, we've got this big problem, Lee Jay, that our guests just aren't getting on with each other. Can you help? We want some more consensus and agreement.
I actually did get one of those calls once, but and yeah, it did help. But no, it's interesting because the entertainment business, in part, has always worked on the power. You'll never work in this town again, and things like that. The star who doesn't want to come out of her dressing room, and the director says, "You tell her if she doesn't." It's always threats and power and who outranks whom. And I've always thought that like every movie shoot on location ought to have a mediator right there because, there's going to be conflict when you take 400 people off site and take over a city and, all of that. There's going to be conflict and we can just help people have better discussions and grease the skids for business to happen.
Who are the nicest people? Sports stars, music stars, movie stars, or... There's probably one other one. Actors? Did I say actors?
You said movie stars,
yeah.
I am biased. I like musicians best.
I
find most musicians are just really cool artists who had a lot of people like their stuff, and they became famous not because that was their end goal. They just wanted to create the music. A lot of folks who get into acting, they want bigger and bigger roles and headlines and their name in lights and all of that. And I don't find a lot of musicians actually aspire to that. And so they can be more down to earth in my experience.
What'd you say the name of that band was that you'd worked with?
Nice try. Nice delivery there, Jess.
Kiss. Metallica.
Waiting for me to hiccup, right?
Okay. All right. Hey, nice to have you here, Lee Jay Berman. Thanks so much.
Just thanks for having me on.